Chapter 17. Time, Part 1.
There's at least 4 left,
Twilight said, looking over the bodies of the changelings they had killed around the nest.
Maybe more, if not all of them captured a victim, like the tenders below.
Rainbow eyed Cadence's emaciated form lying on the floor.
Do you think they went after the others?
The princess slept soundly. Even in her brief moments of consciousness, Cadence seemed delirious and detached. Twilight wondered how long she had been in stasis. With one last glance at the alicorn, she turned to the rest of the freed ponies. A small group of guards and chroniclers gathered in between the bookshelves.
Thunderfoot, take them to the first floor. Stick together and watch out for any newcomers. We're going to hunt down the remaining changelings,
Twilight said. Thunderfoot nodded. If that's what you want, we can do that. You saved us, after all. Fluttershy took a determined step forward.
I'll stay with them. I'll stay too,
Rarity offered.
It's best for us to not be alone.
Twilight sighed wearily.
Fine. Keep them safe.
She trotted rapidly toward the stairs, Rainbow joining her.
Remember, solar, lunar,
she called over her shoulder. She silently hoped there were no more nests, and her estimate on the changeling's remaining strength was accurate. As they left, Rainbow quietly asked,
Can changelings curse alicorns? I'm not sure,
Twilight said as they reached the first flight of steps.
Maybe they're more powerful than I expected. Or maybe we're dealing with something that's a little more than a changeling. So the Cadence in Manhattan told the Iron Circle we were coming,
Rainbow said.
And destroyed them. She and Shining Armor,
Twilight said, descending the steps at a brisk pace. Rainbow sighed.
The Duke too? How do you know? I don't know,
Twilight admitted.
But I can make an educated guess.
She wearily looked around as they reached a landing at the next floor. She turned to Rainbow, pausing.
He's the Black Knight.
Rainbow stopped dead next to Twilight.
What? You lost me.
Twilight tapped her hoof on the stone.
My dreams, he and I being similar. The second child, what he said before he killed Star Swirl. How he attacked me the moment he saw me, how he fought me. It's him, it all makes sense.
She sat down and down the next flight of stairs.
Why didn't I see it sooner?
She thought.
I was so close!
She remembered what Hay Brittle had said when she asked him about the Black Knight.
Shiny, 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 hiding in the dark.
I still have no idea what you're talking about,
Rainbow said.
Second child?
Twilight sighed and pulled the journal out of her pack. She tossed it to Rainbow, and Rainbow caught it deftly.
Can't read,
Rainbow reminded her. Twilight took it back.
Right. Well, it's Star Swirls. Don't worry about it. Forget I said anything about the Black Knight. The main thing is, whoever is pulling the strings wants a war. They threw away the Iron Circle as soon as it might lead back to them. Either Shining Armor is in on it, or he's being fooled by the fake Cadence. Why hide the real Cadence here?
Rainbow asked, matching her pace.
To keep you from finding her?
Twilight nodded.
We were digging, and it's the last place I would look. If we hadn't found the tiny trail of breadcrumbs that led here, I never would have suspected a thing. It wasn't a trap. They were just trying to hide.
Rainbow ruffled her feathers.
Where does that leave us? Same place as we were before. Finish off the changelings, find the black...
Twilight was cut off.
Twilight! We've got a problem!
Pinky shouted, rushing up the steps from below.
Solar!
Twilight and Rainbow challenged in unison. Pinky stopped and stared at them. She turned to head back down the stairs.
Come quick!
Rainbow glanced at Twilight. As Twilight drew her swords, she gave Rainbow a small nod. She advanced toward Pinky as Rainbow opened her wings and glided down the stairs. Rainbow stretched out her wing blade, ready to strike.
Oh, right,
Pinky said, stopping suddenly.
Lunar! Oh, Pinky!
Rainbow shouted, rolling to one side to avoid hitting her. She caught herself on the railing and managed a landing.
God, I could have killed you! Don't be silly, Dashy,
Pinky said.
I would have ducked.
Twilight stepped over the corpse of a changeling felled by wounds from twin spikes as she moved down a narrow passage. Water slowly dripped from the ceiling, filling her ears with a staccato rhythm. At the end of the passage, a changeling in the center of a small chamber perched on an opaque white sphere, surrounded by two of its brethren. Where its hooves touched the orb, energy sparked and crackled.
They were asking for you,
Pinky said quietly.
They said that damaging the orb could kill everyone in Candlekeep. They're right,
Twilight whispered. She stared at the orb. It was twice as large as a pony, and it contained her full hood wild surge.
Twilight Sparkle!
The changeling atop the orb called, its voice rough and grating.
Give us the Crystal Princess and leave, or we will unleash your power.
What's it talking about?
Rainbow asked. Twilight advanced.
I won't condemn any pony to your fangs.
Stop! You can still save them!
The changeling shouted. The two beside it chattered and hissed.
You're right,
Twilight said as she drew Celestial Fury.
I can.
If our queen cannot have her, no one can!
The changeling yelled. It lifted its hooves, and before Twilight could close the distance, slammed them down onto the sphere. A spiderweb of cracks ran across the surface of the containment orb. White energy tinged with a violet edge arced out from one side, vaporizing one of the changelings and scoring a gouge in the wall beyond. Lightning rippled across the carapace of the changeling on top of the orb, cooking it within its shell. Twilight rushed through the archway at the entrance to the chamber. Before the changeling was fully dead, she closed enough distance to run it through with Celestial Fury. The third changeling jumped at her, but before it could reach her, Rainbow shot past, cleaving a wedge-shaped chunk out of its back with her wing blades. It crumpled to the floor, green ichor oozing from the wound. Before it could die, Twilight pulled Celestial Fury free and brought the edge of the blade down on its head. The blade buried into the stone beneath, and Twilight let it go.
Rainbow!
She shouted.
Get out of here!
A second arc burst out of the orb, cutting through the air over Twilight's head. With a grinding sound, it dug a furrow into the arch. Rainbow was shouting something, but Twilight could not hear her over the noise. She only caught the last of it.
Not leaving you! You're wasting time!
Twilight lifted Rainbow in her magic field and tossed the Pegasus back through the arch. Pinky caught her on the far side.
Get them out of here! All of them! I'll hold it back for as long as I can!
Twilight shouted as the archway crumbled.
I'm not going to let you die!
Rainbow screamed, struggling against Pinky's grasp. The arch collapsed. Stones fell between them, and in an instant, Twilight was alone. She turned to the orb. A third arc broke free, scouring the back wall. Gaping holes in the surface of the containment orb revealed a nova-bright core of magical energy. Twilight took a step closer. Crackling lines of energy met her skin and her horn. It was invigorating. She closed her eyes and focused on the core, forcing the energy back in.
This is for the best.
Twilight thought. She would die here. Her friends would live. The citizens of Candlekeep would live.
I have to buy them time.
She told herself. Time. Her eternal enemy. She never had enough of it. She always solved the puzzles too late, and the more it pressed forward, the more mired and shadowed her world became.
I wish I could have had my revenge,
she thought. It didn't seem so valuable to her anymore, though. Things weren't so clear. The Black Knight didn't appear to be the villain she had once pictured, single-minded and unstoppable. He was a pony like her, caught up in something he didn't fully understand. The energy yielded to her at first, content to behave. But with every passing moment, the strain of holding it back grew. There was more than a thorn in her chest. There was a pulsing nova of magical energy as well. The more power she focused on the tip of her horn to try and hold back the energy in the core, the larger the wild surge became. Her magic resonated with itself. She stood rigid in the chamber with the fires of her magic raging around her. Time lost consistency, flowing around her in a freeze state. With no anchor to track it, she lost all sense of it. All she could do, as she felt herself slipping, was hope she had bought enough of it.
Why am I giving up?
Twilight thought again.
I have all this power.
It's better this way, the voice from her nightmares whispered in her ear.
You said you would help me kill him.
Twilight thought. You are out of control.
Whose? Yours or mine?
You should let go. Twilight remembered Rainbow's scream. Her life wasn't her own. It belonged to her friends, and theirs to her.
I have to fight. No matter how hopeless it seems, I have to try.
The magic was beginning to tear and warp her body. Pain spread through her. She opened her eyes. Chaos flooded her senses, but she pushed through, grabbing a tendril of energy. She struggled to control it, but it was her own, and it yielded to her. With it, she forged a path by ripping a doorway to another place. It opened in front of her to a starry sky meeting the dawn. She had no idea where it led, only that it was far away from where she was.
Stay!
The voice roared. Twilight waited until the energy was about to rip her apart, holding it back for as long as she could, and then willed herself through the portal. The whole of Equestria spread beneath Twilight Sparkle. She occupied a space fixed high on the celestial sphere. The dome of the material plane curved beneath her. Countless points of light gleamed on its surface, in the cities, the forests, and the oceans, each a living soul burning with vigor. They shifted and snuffed, 1,000 dying here, and 1,000 being born in their place. But they all shared connections. She focused, and the myriad lines between them lit. Cities became etched with spiderwebbing patterns of unfathomable interconnectedness. But rainbow lines of color in the wilderness drew her attention. Outside of the place she had left, Candlekeep, her friends stood together. An intangible bond glowed bright around them, binding them together. It reached up to her, and if she reached back, she could take it. She gazed around the seemingly flat plains around her. To her left, stars, huge balls of warm energy, burned. To her right, the sky faded to a blue mist. A tremendous point of light flared through the blue mist and forced her eyes closed. She blinked her eyes open as the brightness dimmed. From the fading light, Celestia walked effortlessly toward her, moving across vast distances with each step. The aurora of her mane and tail flowed behind her, stretching back toward the day. She spread her wings wide and smiled.
"You're awfully high up, Twilight Sparkle,"
she said in a warm voice. Twilight glared at her. She reached for her swords and found only Solstice.
"You lied to me,"
she said. Celestia shook her head.
"I never lied to you. But I did withhold the truth."
She produced celestial fury and wiped away a globule of green ichor marring the blade.
"I think you left this in a changeling."
She passed it to Twilight without hesitation.
"I did not think the knowledge required to summon them had survived."
Twilight took the sword. She held it aloft and ready.
"We are not friends. You shouldn't have given this to me. You were right there. You were so close and you let him die,"
she shouted.
"You're as much responsible as any pony else. I should kill you."
Celestia closed her eyes and bowed her head passively.
"Do what you think is right, Twilight. But know this. My power in the material plane is limited. Any engagement with an individual as powerful as the one that killed Star Swirl would be a risk."
She opened her eyes, her gaze hardening to brilliant points.
"And if you tried to kill me here, I would be forced to fight back." "You should have fought anyway. You should have protected him,"
Twilight shouted.
"I tried,"
Celestia said. She looked down at the world below.
"Even though I could have died in the effort, I tried. I didn't get there in time, but at least you were safe." "What am I?"
Twilight shouted.
"Why do I matter? I want answers." "How much did you find out?"
Celestia asked, turning back to her.
"Star Swirl called me a shadow spawn,"
Twilight murmured, lowering her swords.
"He called me an it. He said I was dangerous." "You are dangerous, Twilight. It's why I withheld the truth from you,"
Celestia said.
"We were playing with fire, Star Swirl and I had no idea how well you would have handled the truth. Would you have embraced your nature? Will you?" "I could have handled it,"
Twilight grumbled.
"If I'm so dangerous, why not just get rid of me? Why all of this?"
Celestia briefly closed her eyes.
"Because of Star Swirl."
A scroll materialized next to her, and she passed it to Twilight. She unfurled it.
Dear Celestia, Goddess of the Sun, I mean no disrespect, but I will not allow you to take Twilight Sparkle away. The celestial plane is no place for a mortal, however safe she may be there. She deserves a life full of passion and wonder. I know there's something you are not telling me about what it means to be a shadow spawn, but that is the truth. She has done nothing wrong. You cannot condemn her for a crime she has yet to commit. She is different from the other children, yes. But I was different too. I love her as my daughter, and I will protect her to my last breath. Sincerely, Star Swirl the Bearded.
Twilight sheathed her swords, her anger melting away.
So he did love me. I wasn't an experiment,
She murmured.
Why did he talk like I was in his journal?
She checked her pack. Surprisingly, her equipment was all intact, including the journal. She pulled out the small black book and shoved it to Celestia. She frowned slightly.
That journal was him trying to look at things objectively, like I asked him to when he first took you in.
She pushed the journal away.
He loved you, and he saw something in you that I couldn't see. It took me until I saw what happened when you cast your first spell, and your mark, to realize that he was right. You are dangerous, yes. But you also have great potential.
Twilight furrowed the scroll and gazed up at Celestia.
What do you mean?
She tried to pass the scroll back to Celestia. With a shake of her head and a soft smile, Celestia declined it.
Keep it.
She positioned herself beside Twilight and draped a wing over her back.
Now come here.
She pulled Twilight close.
I want to show you something.
Twilight leaned into Celestia's side. The angel's soft feathers along the leading edge of Celestia's wing brushed her cheek. She breathed a sigh of contentment, pressing into the immeasurably warm body beside her. With a nudge, Celestia directed her gaze downward.
Do you see it?
Celestia asked in a hushed tone. Twilight blinked, the connection she saw before still etched into her vision. She still saw the rainbow of her friends wisping beneath her.
You mean the connections? Do you know what they are? They're friendships. Interactions of mutual benefit.
Celestia laughed, a musical tinkle in Twilight's ear.
An odd way of describing it, but correct. It is harmony. Life is a beautiful thing. It rises from chaos and conflict, but it strives against that darkness by forming bonds. Magic, the soul of the world, rises from life itself. Friendship is magic,
Twilight murmured.
They're ley lines.
She turned to Celestia.
How did no pony see this before?
Celestia smiled at Twilight.
Friendship is magic. I never looked at it like that before.
She looked down at Equestria again.
Ponies understood the nature of harmony once, and they built a grand civilization based on its principles. And some of them rose high indeed. But that knowledge was lost to a war of gods. Why don't you still guide us? Why aren't you there when we need you?
Twilight asked. With a sigh, Celestia pulled away from Twilight.
I am, in the way that I still can be.
She turned to face Twilight.
A long, long time ago, nearly 2 centuries after my sister and I destroyed Azrael the Shadow, my forces and I succeeded in pushing Discord and his servants back to the gates of Tartarus. It would have cost countless lives to seal him within and safeguard Equestria from his influence. Instead, I used my position of strategic superiority to negotiate the terms of a truce. We both accepted a geas, binding our divine essence to our respective planes of dominion. I find ways to slip around the terms of the geas, but I can only use a fraction of my power when I'm on the material plane.
Celestia frowned.
But no rules can bind Discord. His only concern is his own amusement. If he were to choose to, he could break the geas and free us both. I fight a pointless war over dust and empty minor planes to keep him occupied, and it keeps my attention far from what truly matters.
And what truly matters? You still haven't explained why I'm important. You've said that I have potential, but what does that mean?
Twilight asked. Celestia gazed into the blue mist, toward the day.
I don't have all of your answers, Twilight. Time is a horizon I cannot see beyond. You have great power, and you carry a portion of Azrael's divine essence. But I do not know what you will do. Your kind could doom us all. You, however, see things that other ponies don't, and you have risen above what you are.
She turned back to Twilight.
I am proud of you. And Star Swirl would be too.
Warmth swelled in Twilight's chest as she drank in Celestia's words of praise, but her mind quickly turned to darker things.
There are a lot of shadow spawn, aren't there?
Celestia nodded.
Many. And if they have given in to what they are, they will try to kill you and claim your essence.
Twilight lifted her hoof and peered at it. Red covered it. Here, in this place, the blood staining her hooves was clear as day.
What are we?
Celestia hesitated a moment before answering.
Azrael never truly died. The shadow found a way to escape defeat, and seeded its essence among the souls of mortals that had yet to be born. And now those souls are living their lives and reaching maturity. The shattered essence wants to reform, and it drives those that carry it toward that goal.
Is that why Shining Armor tried to kill me?
Twilight asked. Celestia took a step back in shock, cocking her foreleg.
What? Shining Armor is a shadow spawn?
Twilight tried to scuff at the ground with a hoof before she realized she was standing on the sky.
I think so. It makes sense. With Cadence being a changeling...
What?
Celestia said, almost shouting.
When did you discover this?
Twilight blinked in surprise at Celestia's reaction.
Today. I found her in one of their cocoons.
Celestia shook her head.
That's not possible. A mere demon can't impersonate an alicorn. Unless...
Unless what?
Unless it was Chrysalis herself,
Celestia said, her eyes widening with realization.
She's trying to collect Azrael's essence. That's why Cadence wanted a war. It would draw the shadow spawn, and if Chrysalis had one or more of them in her control, she could collect Azrael's divine essence.
She furrowed her brows.
What is she planning on doing with it?
Twilight reached out toward the rainbow tendril with a hoof.
Twilight, what are you doing?
Celestia asked, looking at her with a puzzled expression, as though she couldn't see what Twilight was reaching for. Twilight withdrew her hoof for a moment.
I'm going to do what you can't.
I'm going to stop her before she hurts anyone else.
She reached out and made the connection. As the rainbow tendril plucked her from the sky, Twilight heard Celestia's voice calling after her.
Twilight!